I can't trust you to take care of Mom anymore." Standing next to Georgie, who said this with a stern expression, Sophia is nodding over and over with a smug smile. "I, too, think it's better if we live with Georgie and his wife. So, I want you to move out as soon as possible." Hearing those words, I felt my heart go cold. Anger bubbled up within me towards Sophia, who had always ordered me around, and towards Georgie and his wife, who had never lifted a finger to help. Seeing me like this, Georgie looked down on me with displeasure. "What's with that look? A disgrace who can't even properly care for Mom, acting all high and mighty." "My name is Olivia. I'm 32 years old and work for a major IT company. I live at my parents' house with my father, Kevin, and my mother, Sophia, both 62 years old. I have a very good relationship with Kevin, who has a solid personality. He introduced me to fishing, a hobby of ours, and we often go fishing together on weekends. On the other hand, Sophia has a free-spirited nature. Whenever I planned to relax at home on weekends, she would suddenly barge into my room saying, "We're going on a trip right now. Get ready immediately." Without listening to my opinion, she'd take me on trips on a whim, which happened quite frequently. My family also includes my older brother, Georgie, who is 3 years my senior. Like Sophia, Georgie acts before thinking, so his personality clashes with my cautious nature. We fought constantly as children, resulting in a strained sibling relationship. When Georgie and I would fight, Sophia often intervened to mediate, but she has always favored Georgie, telling me I was in the wrong and that I should apologize to him. Now that we're adults, we've stopped fighting, but looking back, it feels like Sophia always preferred Georgie. Georgie ended up marrying Cindy, a colleague from his work, 5 years ago after she became pregnant. This led him to move out of the house. There had been talk of living together, but Cindy refused, so that idea fell through, leaving Kevin, Sophia, and me to live as a trio. 4 years ago, Kevin died in a truck accident while at work. The sudden loss left me emotionally unstable, unable to cope, and it took me a long time to recover. But the shock of losing Kevin was even more profound for Sophia than it was for me. Sophia, who had been a housewife, stopped doing any household chores and secluded herself in her room after the accident. Then, misfortune continued when Sophia misstepped on the house's stairs, tumbling down and suffering severe injuries. Thankfully, it wasn't life-threatening, but she became physically dependent on care. Sophia, further disheartened by her injuries, not only secluded herself in her room but also stopped eating the meals I prepared. When I saw her after a long time, she had become emaciated. Thus, believing this situation wasn't good for Sophia, I resolved to use Kevin's inheritance and my savings to build a barrier-free house that would make living easier for Sophia. The construction proceeded smoothly and, while not a mansion, a functional, barrier-free house suitable for caring for Sophia was completed. Sophia seemed to like it very much and gradually began to regain her usual cheerfulness. Moreover, she couldn't walk around freely, but she started coming out of her room, sitting on the porch to relax. Since then, I've been living busy days, juggling work, household chores, and caring for Sophia. One day after work, I came home to find Georgie and his wife visiting with their child. And the laughter of Sophia and Georgie filled the entrance. "I'm home. Oh, big brother, you're here. Welcome." As I greeted them, Georgie, seeing me just home, said he wanted to talk. After changing from my suit into casual clothes, I headed to the living room where Georgie and the others were waiting. "What's all this formality about? What's going on?" I asked, and Georgie cheerfully responded. "We were just discussing, and we decided to live with Mom. So, Olivia, you need to leave this house." Despite refusing to live together when they got married, this sudden change of policy. And the declaration of living with Sophia, along with the unreasonable demand for me to leave, left me unable to comprehend. This house isn't built for two families. With the child and all, we won't have enough rooms. So, Olivia, you need to leave. Besides, you're 32, right? It's not good to keep relying on your parents and living at home forever. That's right, Olivia. How can you not see that you're being a burden to Sophia? As an adult, you should have realized this without us having to say anything. It's time to stop depending on your parents and become independent. While I was being unilaterally criticized by Georgie and Cindy, I wanted to argue that I wasn't actually depending on my parents. To be honest, I've always wanted to live with Georgie and the rest. He's our precious eldest son, after all. And Olivia, you've always been so cautious and slow. It's been frustrating to watch. Plus, I could never tell what you were thinking, which was creepy. Sophia suddenly came out with her desire to live with Georgie and their family and revealed what she really thought of me. Besides, even now, Olivia, you hardly do any housework because you're always busy with work. There's no point in living with Olivia, who is useless. Now that Georgie and his family have said they'll live with me, you should quickly pack your things and leave. Sophia saw me not as a family member, but merely as a convenient housekeeper. Due to my work commitments and coming home late during busy periods, I couldn't adequately keep up with household chores, prompting the suggestion that I leave. I could forgive the harsh words from Georgie and Cindy, but Sophia's words deeply wounded me. Since Kevin passed away, I've struggled to support Sophia, pushing through my fatigue after work to take care of the household and provide care for Sophia. Moreover, Georgie and his wife were living far from the house, so I couldn't rely on them for support. Additionally, my workplace is a bit far from home, requiring a considerable commute time. My job does not accommodate remote work, so I commute daily by train. I had thought many times about moving closer to my company after Kevin died. Yet, despite Sophia's profound grief over losing Kevin and her need for care, I chose to support her. But to her, it seems I was just a housekeeper. Feeling betrayed by Sophia, sadness and anger began to swell within me. Busy with work and can't even take proper care of Mom, huh? Really, you're such a disgrace. You're failing as a family member. Stop half-assing it and just pack your bags and leave if you're that incompetent. Hey, Georgie, don't you think calling her a failure as a family member is too much? Don't worry, Olivia. We'll live together and take perfect care of Sophia, just you watch. Oh, Cindy, that's so reassuring. Unlike Olivia, you make me feel secure. This is how a family should be. These words from Georgie and the others unleashed the pent-up anger and sadness within me. Understood. I'll get everything sorted and leave you to your freedom. Suppressing various emotions, I said just that and returned to my room. As I ascended the stairs to my room, the voices of Sophia and the others, gossiping about me, could still be heard from the living room. It seemed I was the only one who thought of us as a family. It appeared the others did not consider me part of theirs. Realizing this, the suppressed feelings of anger, sadness, and frustration came flooding back. After entering my room and closing the door, I decided to make a significant phone call, harboring strong emotions. 2 weeks after I left the house, I received a call from Georgie. Hey, Mom isn't doing any household chores at all. What's going on? According to Georgie, Sophia wasn't taking care of the house or the children at all, leaving them in a bind. I had assumed this would be the case since Sophia hadn't been doing chores even when I was living there, but it seemed Cindy had different expectations. It turns out Cindy had hoped that, despite needing some care, Sophia's condition wasn't serious and that she could handle household chores and look after the grandchildren, allowing Cindy to take it easy. I couldn't help but feel astounded by Cindy's overly optimistic thinking and Georgie's complaints, despite agreeing to it so readily. There was no way living together and relying on Mom from the start was going to work. Plus, we knew she needed care all along. What are you complaining about now? I wasn't told she couldn't move around this much. Georgie came up with excuses like a child. And that's not all. People claiming to be from a real estate and construction company have been showing up, asking to see the house, causing us trouble. They're probably scammers, so we've been ignoring them. But they've been sending letters for a while, showing up at the house, and even calling. It's getting really annoying. Georgie said this in frustration, and I calmly replied, "Oh, that's because I hired a professional service. I've sold the house, so you'll need to move out soon." What? Why are you selling Mom's house without permission? It's our house, don't mess around. I ignored Georgie's yelling and explained that Sophia was already informed. Why do you think the house I paid to build is Mom's, let alone yours? I built it, so it's my right to sell it. The buyer wants to demolish it and the surrounding land to build condominiums. They were thrilled to buy it. Why would you do something like that on your own? We're living there right now. Is this how you treat family? Who was it that said to leave because I was useless? Besides, it's my house that I bought, so I can do whatever I want with it. As I countered Georgie, who tended to ignore inconvenient truths, he seemed to run out of arguments. Georgie suddenly changed his tone, pleading with me in a different voice. Please! We were wrong! So, stop selling the house and cancel the demolition. Talk to the company and convince them to stop. I'll even let you live here. We'll make the rent cheap and even do some of the housework. How about that? It's not a bad deal, right? I'm saying we'll welcome you back into the family. Even in this situation, Georgie seemed not to understand his position at all. Despite it being the house I bought, he's talking about charging me rent, assuming I'd do the housework, and saying they'd welcome me back into the family. I was utterly astounded by Georgie's arrogant remarks, informed him that a buyer had already been found and that the sale wouldn't be reversed, and he should leave the house without causing any more trouble for the company, then hung up. Georgie called again shortly after, but I blocked his number. Soon after, I received messages from both Cindy and Sophia, blaming me and asking to stop the sale of the house, but I replied with rejections to both and decided to block Sophia and Georgie's contacts, resolved never to see them again. A colleague who lives near the house I had built later told me about Sophia and Georgie's situation. After our call, the contractors moved in quickly to start demolishing the house. Sophia and the Georgies resisted until the end, trying to prevent the contractors from entering and spreading malicious rumors about illegal construction in the neighborhood, continuing their harassment and interference. I had warned the contractors in advance that these people were difficult and might cause trouble, so they were somewhat prepared. However, overwhelmed by the severity of their malicious harassment, the contractors reached their limit and threatened to call the police if the harassment and interference continued. Faced with cold stares from those looking forward to the new condominium and the mention of the police, Sophia and Georgie stopped their resistance and ceased their harassment. Demolition progressed smoothly after that, and Sophia and Georgie, having lost their house, hastily rented a small apartment nearby. However, Sophia continued not to do any housework or care for the children, and Cindy had to take on both household chores and care. Frustrations in living with Sophia accumulated, leading to daily arguments loud enough for the neighbors to hear. When Cindy could no longer bear it and sought Georgie's advice, he kept avoiding the issue, too busy with work to listen properly. Eventually, Cindy reached her limit and, one night while everyone was asleep, took the children and left Sophia and Georgie's place for good. Georgie frantically tried to contact Cindy but couldn't reach her, finding only a completed divorce application left behind. The apartment they hastily moved into was chosen in a rush, prioritizing speed without properly checking the interior or specifying detailed conditions. As a result, the living situation became difficult for Sophia, who needed care. After Cindy left, Sophia reluctantly began to do household chores but couldn't manage everything due to her injuries. Georgie also started doing household chores out of necessity, but having never done them before, the quality was terrible, leading to daily arguments with Sophia. Georgie, having been left by his wife and children and returning home tired from work, faced the stress of unfamiliar chores and caring for Sophia, appearing older than his actual age and becoming isolated at work. Originally, Georgie had an outgoing personality like Sophia's, with many friends and a fulfilling private life, but his mental state deteriorated due to his current lifestyle, leading to harsh behavior. Gradually, he lost friends and was avoided at work, becoming lonely. Moreover, Sophia has been looking for me recently, shouting my name around the house, becoming the talk of the neighborhood, as a colleague mentioned. As for me, I am now living abroad. My boss had always wanted me to go to our overseas branch, but I had declined due to caring for Sophia, who needed assistance. However, after being driven out of the house, I accepted the overseas transfer without hesitation and left for America. Life in a new environment is full of exciting new challenges. And while it requires a different perspective from America, I find it very rewarding. Before leaving America, a colleague who had long harbored feelings for me confessed, and we started dating. Though we are in a long-distance relationship, we found in each other the best partner to encourage and elevate one another. He proposed that we get married when I return to America, so I eagerly await my return, fully committed to my work. Freed from the troubling relationships of the past, I am savoring happiness and living fulfilling days. I want to marry Thomas the doctor, so please divorce him, old woman. One day, a young woman suddenly showed up at our house and said. Elizabeth, a bar girl who is 12 years younger than me, was leaning on my husband Thomas's arm as if seeking his affection. Sure, but there's one condition, I said with a smile, looking at both of them. I'll file for divorce right in front of you. So, will you apply for your marriage certificate in front of me? The two, momentarily confused by what was said, accepted with a smug smile. Trying not to burst into laughter, I headed to the family court with them to submit the divorce application. My name is Amelia. I'm 34 years old and work as an internist at a hospital. My husband Thomas, who is the same age, also works at the same hospital. Since we both have night shifts, our days off rarely coincide, and we don't have any children yet. While we used to get comments about grandchildren from my parents and parents-in-law, they've pretty much stopped now. Given our busy schedules and the possibility of being called into work unexpectedly, they seem to have accepted that grandchildren are off the table as long as I work at this hospital. Though I feel a bit guilty towards our parents, I find my job very fulfilling. Thomas likes his job too and occasionally attends skill upgrade training sessions. His hard work is well regarded in the hospital, and despite our busy schedules, we lead fulfilling lives. My discontent with Thomas began when the rules we set at the beginning of our marriage started to be ignored. Given our demanding jobs, we had clearly set some rules regarding household chores. One of them was that the person not on night shift would take care of the chores. Since our night shifts are irregular, it's difficult to divide the chores by day or type. Therefore, we decided to base it on the presence or absence of night shifts. Until now, if I was on a night shift, Thomas would cook simple meals and take care of cleaning and laundry. However, lately, even when he's not on night shift, Thomas is often out at night. Hey, have you been leaving the house more often, even on nights you're not working? Yeah. Sorry, I've been invited out for drinks a lot lately because the instructor seems to like me. I used to decline, but it felt bad to always say no, and after I accepted once, the invitations just kept coming. Sorry. I'll try to reduce the frequency. Indeed, the hospital is hosting various training sessions at this time, some of which involve external instructors. I remembered, patting Thomas on the shoulder. It's fine. It means you're just that wanted, right? Plus, the training sessions are only for about 2 more weeks. Don't worry about the house and just do your best. Sorry, that helps a lot. Thomas is a good listener, which often leads me to share many things with him. It made sense why he was favored by the instructor. Though Thomas said he would use his own allowance for the drinking parties, at that rate, it would quickly run out. So, I decided to cover the expenses for the next 2 weeks from our living expenses. For the next 2 weeks, Thomas started going out at night whenever there were training sessions. Even after the training ended, the night outings continued. I thought he was busy with night shifts, but Ms. Brown, a veteran janitor, told me that wasn't the case. Thomas hasn't been doing many night shifts lately. We'd prefer to leave it to the men, especially since we have many older staff in our department. It turned out Thomas was going out at night even when he wasn't on night shift. Just when I was about to confront him, my schedule got so hectic that I didn't have the time to question him. By the time my schedule calmed down, I no longer felt like confronting Thomas. All I wanted was to come home and sleep in my bed. Exhausted, when I returned home after a night shift, there was an unfamiliar woman's umbrella at our house. I'm home. Thomas, do we have a guest? Welcome back. Sorry for the suddenness, but there's something we need to talk about. As I walked into the living room, I saw Thomas sitting on the sofa, with an unknown woman next to him. The woman, who looked like a college student, was snuggling up to Thomas. Can I leave my bag here? Yeah, that's fine. But I hope you can make it quick. The atmosphere clearly indicated it wasn't a good conversation, so I sighed and went to leave my belongings in the room. Without changing, I returned to the living room in my work clothes and sat on the sofa facing Thomas and the woman. I believe this is our first meeting. What brings you here today? Nice to meet you. I'm Elizabeth. I came here today because I want you to divorce Thomas, old woman. More than being called old woman by someone I just met, it was her lisping speech that irked me. Holding back my confusion, I looked at Thomas, who seemed flustered for a moment but then met my gaze firmly. Elizabeth works at the bar where I went with the instructor. She's a college student working part-time to pay for her tuition, a very earnest girl. A college student? No offense, but how old are you? Are you even over 21? I'm 22. Old woman and I have a 12-year gap. Interesting, isn't it? I wanted to challenge her comment about being interesting, but resigned myself to glaring at Thomas. So, you cheat on me while I'm busy and now want to marry a younger girl and ask for a divorce, is that it? Why do you have to say it like it's something bad? I just want to protect Elizabeth for the rest of my life. You can live on your own, but Elizabeth needs me. Thomas, that's so cool. Watching them engage in affectionate gestures before me made me sigh. Thomas was completely smitten by Elizabeth, finding everything she said adorable, which was incredibly annoying. Every time I called Elizabeth's name, she looked at me with a triumphant, smug smile. Do you really want to marry this man? A man who goes to bars while married, brags, and lies. A man who takes the sales talk of bars seriously. Are you sure you won't regret it? Of course I want to marry him. After all, Thomas is a doctor and earns a lot. It's terrible to accuse him of lying. He's promised to stop going to bars once we're married. Thomas and I are in love, so it'll be fine. Hearing this, Thomas hugged Elizabeth as if moved, and they once again retreated into their own world. I stared at Thomas in disbelief, but our eyes never met. All right then. If you two have decided on that, I'll divorce you. But there's a condition. What's the condition? Division of assets? At Thomas's words, I shook my head no, and then looked at them with a smile. We're going to the family court together. I want Elizabeth to witness Thomas and I submitting our divorce application. After the divorce application is accepted, I want you two to apply for your marriage certificate in front of me. That's all. The two, initially confused by what was said, stood up delighted when they realized that was the only condition. Then, the three of us headed to the family court. At the family court, Thomas and I first submitted our divorce application. I made a somewhat unreasonable request to the staff to expedite the process as much as possible. Later, when the divorce application was accepted, we went to the state office, where Thomas and Elizabeth applied for their marriage certificate. I helped them fill out the application forms and advised them on the necessary identification documents, all the while feeling the curious glances from those around us. The atmosphere of an ex-wife helping the new wife with the paperwork felt awkward, and the staff deliberately avoided looking at us. I felt a bit guilty, but I couldn't help feeling good about myself. Then, I returned home and moved all my belongings to my parents' house. Since I hardly ever shopped due to my demanding job and left the household items behind, there wasn't much to move except for valuables and clothes. I managed to pack everything into suitcases and moved out by car in less than a day. When I got back to my parents' house, they were furious with Thomas, but I calmed them down with a smile. Don't worry. I'm not letting this go. I'll make sure both of them end up in a miserable situation. 3 days later, I was called to a meeting room through an internal phone line at the hospital reception. A woman is here insisting on seeing the doctor. What should I do? Please direct her to an available room. I'll come over as soon as I finish my consultation. When I arrived at the designated meeting room, unsurprisingly, it was Elizabeth. She was taken aback upon seeing me in my lab coat. Hello. I've managed to spare 5 minutes between consultations, so let's make this quick, shall we? What do you mean? He wasn't a doctor, and you are, eh? Elizabeth was panicking, but I didn't have the time to calm her down. I informed Elizabeth with a smile. Indeed, Thomas works at this hospital, but he is a janitor. He's responsible for everything from cleaning to disinfection, a valued staff member. What? He lied to me. Elizabeth slammed her fist on the meeting room table, ranting about Thomas. Didn't you listen? I told you, Thomas is a man who brags and lies about his status. Life might be tough from now on, but good luck. This is a joke. If he's not a doctor, I don't need such a man. I waved goodbye to the nearly explosive Elizabeth and left the meeting room. I heard her trying to stop me, but I rushed back to my consultation room with full speed. After exchanging high fives with the nurses who knew the situation, I calmed down and called in the next patient. Later, Elizabeth found Thomas working in the hospital and demanded a divorce. Elizabeth shouted that there was no point in being married if he wasn't a doctor. while Thomas loudly claimed that love doesn't care about professions. The spectacle was witnessed by waiting patients and nurses, quickly becoming the talk of the hospital. Despite whispers from onlookers, the heated argument between the two didn't subside until security had to intervene, nearly leading to police involvement. Elizabeth stormed out of the hospital, and Thomas followed her. Elizabeth returned home and caused a neighborhood disturbance by screaming at Thomas to divorce her and claiming the house, along with demanding compensation for being deceived. Around the time our divorce became known in the hospital, I filed for compensation against both of them for the affair. Thomas and Elizabeth came to my parents' house immediately after receiving the letter from the lawyer. What the heck is this about demanding compensation? You didn't set any conditions other than remarrying Elizabeth. Why are you demanding compensation now? They barged into the house without hesitation, ranting in front of my parents. Well, Thomas, you cheated on me while we were married, and you, Elizabeth, knew he was married and still had an affair with him, right? So, of course, I'm going to demand compensation from both of you. Don't be ridiculous. It's not my fault. I won't pay a cent. You're so greedy even though you're a doctor. Your nature is so vile. Their yelling didn't bother me at all. Do you know why I included your remarriage in the divorce conditions? Thomas and Elizabeth looked puzzled. One reason is to make it clear that Thomas was having an affair while married to me. Normally, getting remarried just a few weeks after a divorce screams that the person was the affair partner. Though you didn't need to do that since you made a scene at the hospital and everyone already knows. The other reason is to ensure I could definitely get compensation from you. I thought Elizabeth was a fake name you used at the bar, and I had no idea where you worked or who you really were. So, I had you fill out the marriage certificate application and helped you with the process. Thanks to that, I got to see all your identification documents. Oh, and when you get married, you have to change your name and address on your driver's license, you know. While Thomas frowned, Elizabeth's face turned paler. So, I'll leave the rest to the lawyer. You can try to dodge or run, but don't forget I have all your personal information. Elizabeth, who works in a bar, must understand the importance of protecting personal information, as it could easily lead to her being stalked. As I smiled, Elizabeth ran off with heavy footsteps. Thomas, looking dumbfounded but irritated at me, followed after Elizabeth. In the now quiet house, I sighed and soothed my angry parents. Elizabeth has been paying the compensation smoothly. Considering she's a college student, I proposed a modest amount, so she should be able to finish paying within the year. Though she wants to divorce Thomas, he's resisting, and neither of them can afford a lawyer for divorce negotiations. Thus, they're separated but not yet divorced. It was also her fault for believing Thomas was a doctor just because she saw a family name similar to his on the hospital's medical staff list. Even though she's still a college student, working in customer service means she should know better than to blur the lines between customers and employees. Perhaps for her, a wealthy doctor was an ideal marriage candidate, but having an affair with a married man was wrong. Even if Thomas agrees to a divorce in the future, she'll have a divorce record. This incident has likely taught her a lesson that destroying someone's family carelessly can lead to dire consequences for herself. As for Thomas, he disappeared from the hospital without me having to do anything. In fact, Thomas, who had left the hospital to follow Elizabeth after she was expelled that day, was in the middle of his shift. As a result, Ms. Brown, a veteran janitor and Thomas's supervisor, was furious. With her face red with anger, she wrote in large letters on Thomas's work schedule that he was absent without permission due to a romantic entanglement. Thanks to that, even the janitors who were off that day came to know about it. Among the staff, that uproar became a major incident, and the patients spread rumors among themselves. As a result, Thomas was the subject of both true and false accusations and ended up being ostracized by everyone, ignored even in greetings, which seemed to break his spirit. One day, he suddenly resigned on his own. Afterward, he apparently returned to his father-in-law house, where his father-in-law, who was already informed of the situation, scolded him severely. There was no apology from Thomas, but I decided not to worry about it anymore since the full amount of compensation I had demanded was deposited by my mother-in-law. In the hospital, I received approaches from male doctors and nurses who heard I was single again, but I declined all of them, thinking I'm okay without marriage for a while. I continue to work as an internist, busy but dedicating time to each of my patients.
The numbers don't add up. You've been cheating.
Ben's angry voice echoes in my ears. Despite having just sipped a cafe latte, I feel terribly ill. I'm 10 months pregnant, and instead of showing remorse for making me drink milk, an allergen for me, Ben accuses me of infidelity.
No, help me.
I lack the energy to deny his suspicion clearly. My hoarse whisper bursts in front of him and fades away swiftly.
Acting won't help you. I won't be fooled. It's not like your allergy is a big deal.
Convinced that I'm cheating, he, seeing me in agony, doesn't help but leaves the house, still doubting me. What should I do? It's all over. With the last of my strength, I try to call someone on my mobile phone. But my weak hands let the phone slip away. Please. Someone help me. My name is Emma. I'm a 33-year-old housewife, living with my husband Ben, a classmate. We met through a mutual friend 2 years ago. Both past 30, we were already considering marriage, so when we met through our friend, we were acutely aware of each other as potential life partners. Ben works for a trading company, with a satisfying salary and handsome looks. Excuse me for asking, but why haven't you married until now? I knew it was blunt, but out of genuine curiosity, I asked him right there. Actually, I had a fiancé until 6 months ago, but it was called off. I was looking for a new partner since then. He answered cheerfully. I nodded in understanding. Being jilted must have been hard. I hadn't experienced it, but I could understand the pain in his heart. After that, we had a lively conversation about trivial things, like our hobbies and how we spend our days off. We shared interests in visiting art galleries and watching movies, making me feel that if we dated and married, we'd spend enjoyable days together. We hit it off and parted ways, agreeing to contact each other in a week. I was amazed at how quickly things progressed, but dating him felt comfortable, allowing me to be myself without undue stress. Being with him, I knew I could be myself. Instinctively feeling this, I started making moves on him. It seemed like he reciprocated my feelings, and just a month after meeting, we started dating. It was a whirlwind romance, totally different from any relationship I'd had before. But I already knew he was a good man, handsome and with a great income, so honestly, I wanted to secure him as my future partner. Our relationship progressed smoothly, and a year after we started dating, we got married. He proposed during a dinner on a cruise ship on my birthday. I have a milk allergy, so he made sure that my courses were prepared with soy milk instead. I really appreciated these thoughtful gestures from him. He was my pride and joy. Naturally, I accepted the engagement ring and carefully placed it on my left ring finger. I had dreamt of this moment, but having it become reality made me wonder if it was all a dream. That's how happy I was. I'll cherish you for life, Emma. He said, his cheeks slightly flushed from the wine, and kissed my cheek. That night was the epitome of happiness, savoring the joy of marrying him. Soon after, we registered our marriage and moved into our own place. How about near your parents' place, Emma? It's close to my work too, and it'll be reassuring, right? Really? That's great, thank you. Knowing I was an only child, he suggested living near my parents, thinking they'd worry. With the possibility of raising children in the future, I was truly grateful, as I'd likely need my parents' help. My family, including relatives, all lived nearby. As a child, my cousin Henry used to play with me a lot. So, starting a new life near my parents was a dream come true. After moving in, I quickly realized something about Ben. He didn't do any housework at all. But as I became a full-time housewife, I thought I was okay with it. However, as time passed, I realized he wasn't just avoiding chores, he was also making a mess everywhere. No matter how much I cleaned, it would quickly become untidy again. I did bring it up with him once. Hey, can you try to keep the room a bit tidier? Like, at least put your dirty clothes in the laundry basket? I tried to say it as gently as I could. But he didn't like being told what to do. It's bothersome, I don't want to, he replied curtly. Sighing, I picked up his scattered clothes. Aside from his messiness, there wasn't much else to complain about. On his days off, he would take me out on dates. We went to see movies we liked or visited limited-time art exhibits. It was a fulfilling married life. However, things started to change when I found out I was pregnant. When my period was unusually late, I checked and got a positive result. I immediately went to the OBGYN and was told I was pregnant. I was overjoyed at the thought of having a child with him. Just knowing I had the person I'd loved's child inside me made the world seem brighter. When Ben got home that day, I couldn't wait to share the big news.
Guess what? I'm pregnant,
I announced, unable to hide my excitement. Really? Ben seemed taken aback. Yes, really. I'm 2 months along. The baby will be here in 10 months, so we have some time, but it's so exciting. I noticed a cloud of confusion shadow his face. 2 months? Yes. He seemed to mull over something. What's wrong? Aren't you happy? Well, it's just that. Ben responded cryptically, leaving me hanging without any further explanation. Did he not want a child with me? We had casually discussed children before marriage, and he seemed eager to have as many as possible. So why wasn't he sharing my joy now? Despite feeling unsettled, the fact remained, I was pregnant. I tried to convince myself that he was just caught off guard. After all, it's often said that fatherhood takes time to sink in. It wouldn't be surprising if he needed time to adjust to the sudden news of pregnancy. But from that day on, he became noticeably distant. He offered no help with household chores, even as I struggled with morning sickness. I knew he wasn't keen on housework, but I had hoped he'd step up when I was in need. I'm sorry, but I'm feeling really sick today. I don't think I can cook, I told Ben before he left for work. What? His response was far from sympathetic.
I've never cooked before, and you expect me to start now? Pregnancy isn't an illness. You're a stay-at-home wife, Emma. Your job is the household, sick or not. I go to work even when I'm not feeling well.
He glared at me as if he was in the right. Sure, he went to work even when feeling under the weather, but everyone's condition is different. To me, barely able to get out of bed, his words felt harsh. But I really can't move, I pleaded with him. He snorted dismissively. Fine. I'll eat out today, he said, leaving the house. I never thought it would come to this. I sighed to myself. I had always believed that we would build a happy family together. But his attitude changed since my pregnancy was disheartening. Had I been so wrong about him? That night, he returned home drunk. I had barely eaten all day due to feeling nauseous. I hoped, maybe foolishly, that he might have brought something back for me to eat, but he came empty-handed. Given his recent behavior, I couldn't help but feel resigned to it. Was I just an afterthought to him? Could it be that he doesn't even want a child? That thought saddened me deeply. Even as morning sickness passed and I entered the stable period, his attitude didn't change. In fact, it felt like he became harsher as I got better. One of these days, my colleagues want to come over to our place, he announced one day after work. Colleagues? How many? 5. Might be more. I want you to cook for them.
Don't serve anything subpar. I don't want them to think my wife can't cook. What? 5 is quite a lot. Can our place even accommodate that many? Plus, I don't think I can handle that much right now. Even though I was in a stable period, I didn't feel up to hosting and cooking for a large group. Besides cooking, there'd be a lot to manage. The thought of handling it all by myself was overwhelming. It'll be fine, you're in your stable period now. So, this weekend, expect them. And remember, don't embarrass me. He said this nonchalantly and whistled his way to the bathroom. I was filled with anxiety. True to his word, he brought 5 colleagues over that weekend. 4 men and 1 woman, an odd balance that made me wonder. But considering he worked in sales at a trading company, maybe female employees were few. Hi, I'm and looking forward to today. The only woman, and greeted cheerfully. With her long hair swept to the side and striking features, she was notably pretty. She looked to be in her late 20s, younger than me, and her elegance made me instantly nervous. Nice to meet you. My husband always speaks highly of you all. I can't offer much, but please make yourselves at home. Trying to act the part of a boss's wife, I ushered everyone to their seats. As I started preparing the meal in the kitchen, Ben and his 6 guests chatted about work and rumors. And seemed to be the life of the party, nodding and interjecting with sharp comments. I felt entirely out of place in that circle. Resolved to stay in the background, I continued my work quietly. When I served the meal, everyone seemed to enjoy it. Is this cream stew made with soy milk? And asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. Yes, that's right. I'm allergic to milk, so I use soy milk for dishes that usually require it. Interesting. And seemed to accept my explanation and resumed eating. Come on, just because you're allergic to milk doesn't mean you should serve our guests with soy milk. Use real milk next time. Ben chimed in. Expecting such a remark, I couldn't help but sigh. I need to eat too, so it has to be soy milk. You could have made separate dishes. He retorted. But I can't taste it if I do that. Our colleagues looked on, shocked by our conversation. Sorry, everyone. She claims to be allergic to milk. It's probably just a preference. Ben scoffed. The colleagues seemed uncomfortable, not sure how to react. Soy milk is delicious too. Please, enjoy your meal while it's hot, I said, trying to keep the mood light. Only and seemed deep in thought, remaining silent. The dinner went by, leaving me exhausted. I hoped he might thank me, but he just went to bed without a word. Our communication had dwindled. And this, along with his dismissive remarks about my allergy, made me feel increasingly frustrated. Months passed, and I was now 10 months pregnant. He kept coming home late, and we barely talked. The absence of our previous joyful dates filled me with loneliness. As the baby's arrival neared, I longed to cherish our time together. But he never initiated any moments like that. Then one day, he entered the living room, carrying a large bag and a familiar cup. It was from a coffee chain we used to frequent during happier times. I'm going on a business trip for 3 days. I went for a walk this morning and stumbled upon this coffee shop, so I bought this. Soy latte, remember? Yes, it's been a while. It was unusual for him to go for a walk in the morning. Stumbling upon a coffee shop and buying soy lattes seemed out of character, considering his recent behavior. He waited with a smile for me to take the soy latte. Was this a change of heart? I felt a glimmer of hope that the kind Ben I knew was returning. I wanted to go for walks with him again. Maybe after the baby was settled. I eagerly took the soy latte and drank it. It tasted familiar at first, but something was off. Is this milk? By the time I realized, it was too late. The cup slipped from my grasp. Ben's face twisted into a satisfied smirk. Hard to breathe. My breathing became labored as I slumped to the ground. I've always had my doubts. Is the child in your belly really mine? He questioned. What? I was utterly shocked by his accusation,
suggesting the baby might belong to someone else. When you said you were 2 months pregnant, it didn't add up. I couldn't recall any encounter from 2 months ago.
But that's...
I wanted to explain to him that he was misunderstanding something, but I couldn't find my breath to defend myself.
The numbers don't add up. You've been cheating.
His accusation resonated in my ears. Despite not having much of the cafe latte, I felt terribly ill. 10 months pregnant, and instead of showing remorse for making me drink milk, an allergen, he was accusing me of infidelity.
No, it's not like that. Help me.
I didn't have the energy to clearly deny his suspicion. My raspy voice burst in front of him and quickly faded away.
Acting won't help. I'm not fooled. Allergies aren't that serious.
Convinced I was cheating, he, instead of helping me in my agony, left the house, still doubting me. What should I do? It's all over. With the last of my strength, I tried to call someone on my mobile phone. But my weak hands let the phone slip away. Please. Someone help. Desperately crying out in my mind, my consciousness began to fade. When I woke up, the first thing I saw was the white walls and ceiling, and I realized I was in a hospital. I was saved. As I felt relieved, I noticed someone's face peering in from the edge of my vision.
Emma! You're awake!
Henry. It was Henry, my cousin who lived nearby. Emma, you called me, and when I answered, I heard nothing at first, so I thought it was a mistake. But then I heard labored breathing and realized something was wrong. I rushed to your house, the front door was open, and I found you collapsed in the living room. It was a shock. I called an ambulance and had you taken to the hospital right away. Henry earnestly explained what happened after I collapsed. I remembered calling him just before I collapsed. He had always been like a big brother to me, caring for me. I thought he would come if there was an emergency. But before I could ask for help, I dropped the phone. I was in awe of him for sensing the emergency and rushing to help. I'll call the doctor. Wait here, he said and left the room. After a while, he returned with the doctor. The doctor explained that I had an anaphylactic shock due to drinking milk, but somehow managed to save me and the baby. Hearing that just a few more minutes could have endangered the baby's life, or left me with lasting disabilities, sent chills down my spine. My being here, awake in the hospital, was all thanks to Henry. Henry, thank you, really. No need to thank me. But how did this happen? His confusion was understandable. It was unthinkable for me, allergic to milk, to drink it willingly. Well, actually, I told him everything about my marriage with Ben up to this point. Ben and I thought we were meant for each other and got married. We had similar hobbies and always enjoyed our dates. Life was happy after marriage, at least for a while. But as soon as I got pregnant, his attitude changed drastically. Looking back, I still can't pinpoint what went wrong. Henry, arms crossed, seemed to be pondering the reason too. Ben's behavior changed after you told him about the pregnancy, right? Yes. When I said I was 2 months pregnant, he thought the calculation was off. He convinced himself I cheated and did this as revenge, I guess. Henry's face hardened as I replied. Revenge or not, this is too much. Feeding you milk when you're allergic. What was he thinking? Anger was clearly visible in his eyes. I felt moved by his anger on my behalf. I can't believe it. If it weren't for you, Henry, neither the baby nor I would have made it. Just thinking about what could have happened without his help sent shivers down my spine. Filled with a mix of relief and a desire for retribution against Ben, I asked, what should I do about Ben? Henry, seemingly pondering the same thing, asked me back. Of course, I can't just let this go. I need to see that he's punished. As I responded, if that's the case, he began. I have a plan. After hearing his plan to deal with Ben, I couldn't wait to confront him. The plan was to be executed upon my discharge from the hospital when I first saw Ben. I resolved to follow Henry's advice when I met Ben. But the plan had to be put into action sooner than I thought. 3 days into my hospital stay, I received a call from Ben. It happened while Henry was visiting me. I hesitated to pick up the phone, and the call ended. But Ben called again immediately. So persistent. I muttered, staring at the incessantly ringing phone. The phone stopped briefly, only to ring once more. As the cycle repeated, I looked at Henry, silently seeking advice. Let's execute the plan now, a bit earlier than expected. Understood. I replied. Nervously, I picked up the mobile phone, pressed the call button, turned on the speaker, and placed it on the table. Hello, Emma? Finally, you answer. Seriously. I returned from my business trip, and you were nowhere to be found. I've been searching all over for you. Running away from home, what's that about? Thanks to you, I haven't had dinner. His angry voice filled the hospital room. If I had held the phone to my ear, it would have hurt from the loudness. Ben, showing no concern for me, immediately started yelling. He was the one who made me drink milk and sent me to the hospital. His complaint about not having dinner was ridiculous, considering he never cooks. If he can't cook, he should eat out, but he doesn't even do that. It's like dealing with a child. While listening to Ben's angry words, I exchanged a resolute nod with Henry. Excuse me, but who am I speaking to? I deliberately lowered my tone to confuse Ben. What? What are you talking about? Ben sounded baffled on the other end. Henry and I exchanged a knowing look and smirked. I don't know who you are. The mobile phone screen says Ben, so are you perhaps my husband? What? He sounded completely perplexed. It made sense. After repeatedly calling his wife, he finally got through, only to hear nonsensical words. I glanced at Henry again and smirked. Henry nodded in agreement. Then Henry took the mobile phone from me and began to speak to Ben. Hello, Ben. My name is Henry. I heard Emma's voice on the phone and took over the call. What? Henry? Who are you? Are you the father of Emma's child? So you're the one she's been cheating with? Ben hastily accused Henry in a stern tone. Cheating? What are you talking about? I'm Emma's cousin. Actually, Emma is currently suffering from amnesia. Amnesia? Yes, this was the plan Henry and I devised. I would pretend to have lost my memory to confuse Ben. The goal was to get Ben to admit that he was the one who gave me the milk. The plan was supposed to be executed when we met in person, but Ben's call accelerated things. No problem, though. It might even be more convenient over the phone since he can't see my face. Don't you know? Emma collapsed from anaphylactic shock 3 days ago due to a cafe latte she drank. Anaphy, what? Ben seemed clueless about such matters, tilting his head on the other end of the line. She nearly died after ingesting milk, an allergen. The baby was almost affected too. Emma lost her memory due to the psychological shock. You were the one who gave her the drink, right? Henry's tone was stern. Ben let out a small cry of disbelief. No. What do you mean no? It was me who gave it to her, and told me to do it. Ben's voice trembled. Hearing this shocking revelation, Henry and I exchanged glances. Then, from the other end of the phone, a woman's voice exclaimed, Wait a minute. We were stunned. It was Anne. I remembered her well as one of Ben's colleagues who had visited our house before. She was the beautiful one. Was Ben cheating with Anne? Why am I getting blamed? You were the one who made her drink it, weren't you? You said giving her the allergic milk would make her bedridden for days, so we could go on a trip without her noticing, right? Yeah, but you gave her too much. Ben and Anne began arguing. From their conversation, it seemed Anne had known about my milk allergy and planned to make me slightly ill so they could travel without worries. Ben and Anne were clearly having an affair. After all his accusations of my supposed infidelity, Ben was the one cheating. I felt nauseated by his hypocrisy. I exchanged a look with Henry and took back the phone. Thank you for your time. I've recorded everything you just said. Hearing my voice, supposedly amnesiac, Ben and gasped on the other end.
What? What do you mean?
Sorry, the amnesia was a lie. It was a ruse to get you to admit you gave me the milk. Thanks to that, I also got your confession of cheating. I'll be claiming a substantial compensation. I said it cheerfully, and Ben and both shouted in disbelief. How foolish can they be? Henry and I were astounded by their lack of awareness of the severity of their actions.
That's terrible. You were cheating too, weren't you? Then the compensation should be split, right? No, it's your fault for cheating first. I thought of cheating with and because of you. So, no need for compensation, right?
Ben's triumphant tone was grossly misguided. When did I say I cheated?
It's obvious if you count the pregnancy weeks.
Ben was clearly mistaken. I set him straight.
Pregnancy weeks are counted from the end of the last menstrual period.
Not knowing that and suspecting me of cheating, then deciding to cheat yourself, that's despicable. I'm divorcing you. Prepare for a hefty compensation. I yelled with all my might and hung up forcefully. Then I blocked Ben's calls. Finally, peace returned. Henry, really, thank you. No, I didn't want to see Emma sad. I'm glad you could set Ben straight. We sighed in relief, facing each other. I was going to have a child without a father, but it's decidedly better than having a father like Ben. Later, Henry and I submitted the voice recorder data with Ben and Anne's confessions to the police. They were promptly arrested and are currently being interrogated. A colleague of Ben's, who visited us before, said it was clear even at their workplace that Ben and Anne were together. One of the colleague, Mike, confessed. I regret not speaking up sooner. But I understand it takes courage to expose a colleague's wrongdoing. I reassured Mike it was okay. Ben's previous engagement had been called off due to his sudden change in behavior. A revelation that made perfect sense. Additionally, it was discovered that Ben and Anne had used company business trips as a cover for their personal vacations multiple times, leading to their dismissal for misusing company funds. After their release from prison, they'll be starting life from scratch, having lost their jobs. The compensation they owe me is substantial. They paid it off with loans, but I wonder what they plan to do next. Sometimes I think they might be better off in prison, given the gravity of their crimes. Taking my allergy lightly, poisoning me with milk, and their infidelity. I have no sympathy for them. I hope they deeply reflect on their actions while with the police. Meanwhile, I gave birth to a baby girl and am currently living at my parents' house, where they help me raise her. Henry often visits and helps with the baby, which I greatly appreciate. When she gets a bit older, how about we go out together? Henry suggested sincerely. Yes. I nodded with a smile. Perhaps there's a future where Henry and I end up together. These hopeful thoughts fill my mind.
You're such an unreliable sister. We need to go big for the Christmas party, so we have to make a lot. Order some more appetizers and steaks. That's my sister Chelsea, always bossing me around. I did as Chelsea asked, ordered takeout, and pack up everything. Then, to my overly excited sister and her husband, I said, well, I'm heading home now. My name is Taylor, a 32-year-old office worker. I've been married to Orland for a year now. We're really close, and our newlywed life has been truly blissful. But then, after father-in-law passed away due to illness, Orland asked me to move in with my mother-in-law Kyla at his family home. I was really anxious about living together, but Kyla was incredibly kind and quickly eased my worries. She taught me her special recipes and treated me so well. Life with just Orland was fun, but I've come to really enjoy our time as a family of 3. I feel blessed to have married into such a wonderful family and cherish these happy days. However, there's something that worries me. My own family. How's Mom feeling today? Oh, I'm doing really well today. I'm currently at a care facility where my mom lives. My dad passed away about 3 years ago, and since then, Mom had been living with my sister and her husband at our family home. But after Mom's legs got weak, they quickly moved her into this care facility. What's worse, I only heard about Mom's situation directly from her, not from my sister. Angry that Chelsea hadn't consulted me, I went to talk to her once. Chelsea just got defensive and lashed out irrationally. Your opinion doesn't matter, Taylor. We were the ones living with her after all. Still, you could have at least told me beforehand. Stop nagging. Why don't you take care of her then? I can't. I'm already living with Orland's mother. Then don't complain. Chelsea and I were never that close. She's always been crafty, tricking our parents with her eloquence to get what she wants since we were kids. At times, she even used me to beg our parents for things. I always looked at Chelsea with a cold gaze. Didn't she feel ashamed to go to such lengths to satisfy her desires? Seemingly aware of my cold gaze, Chelsea always snapped at me. So my sister and I used to fight a lot and argue frequently. Dad would always end up scolding both of us. Really? I thought having 2 daughters would make for a quiet and peaceful home. Turns out we're noisier than the neighbors with their 2 boys. I vividly remember Dad grumbling like that. After Chelsea left for college and started living alone, our home became peaceful. However, I feel like we still clash every time we met, especially during Christmas. As adults, Chelsea married before I did. I met her husband for the first time at a family introduction, and he seemed to have a similar personality and aura to Chelsea. Apparently, Chelsea hardly ever visited our parents' house after her marriage. I was already working and living on my own then, so I didn't know much. But I heard from Mom that Chelsea rarely showed her face. A few years later, Chelsea had a son. I met my nephew Stuart for the first time at a Christmas gathering. He was just born and very adorable. Then Dad passed away. And a year after that, I got married. I kept my distance from my sister and her family. We mostly met during Christmas about once a year. So when I heard Mom was quickly moved to a facility after her legs got weak, my distrust towards my sister and her husband grew significantly. They had said they moved in with Mom to keep her company after Dad's passing. But then, they quickly cast her aside as soon as she needed care. Did Chelsea discuss with you, Mom, about moving you to the facility? No. It was more like she was forced. She said she couldn't do it because of her childcare responsibilities. Her husband agreed and started looking for a facility right away. That's terrible. Was the living situation before your legs got weak just as bad? Mom looked down a bit when I asked. Yes, even when you scolded her. Chelsea always dumped all the housework on me. She even left Stuart scared to me. I was getting tired, so maybe moving to the facility was for the best. Mom. It saddened me to hear Mom had been through so much. After Dad died, Chelsea inherited the family home. I wondered if my sister and her husband had been waiting to take over the house, to live rent-free, and to get rid of Mom, the nuisance. It seemed like something Chelsea would do. She would always prioritize herself first. I visited Mom regularly at the facility, but Chelsea hadn't shown her face even once. She probably didn't care much about our parents. In fact, Chelsea didn't seem too distraught even when Dad died. But when it came to the funeral and inheritance, she and her husband were very proactive. The heirs were Mom and us sisters, but Chelsea's husband kept butting in. Though Dad's estate wasn't much, just the family land and house, they repeatedly suggested that Mom and Chelsea should inherit it. I'll take care of Mom, so let's live together, Chelsea had said, convincing Mom. Mom asked me what I thought, and honestly, I didn't mind who inherited the house. If Chelsea was willing to take care of Mom, I was okay with her inheriting it. After I shared my thoughts, Mom agreed, and we decided to let Chelsea inherit the land and house. My sister and her husband, quite different from how they were during the funeral, efficiently prepared for the inheritance and completed the process quickly. Then they moved into our family home and started living together. It seemed more about acquiring the house than living with Mom, but I was glad Mom wouldn't have to live alone in her old age. However, living with my sister and her husband turned out to be a nightmare for Mom. When I visited home, like during Christmas, Mom would always express her dissatisfaction when we were alone. Apparently, Chelsea, though a homemaker, dumped all the household chores on Mom and even had her take care of her son. Mom had to take Stuart to and from daycare and play with him. I'm already 68 and getting weaker. Chelsea does nothing, leaving Stuart to me and going out during the day. Such a thing. I trusted Chelsea to take care of Mom, but at that time, I had just started living with Kyla, so I couldn't live with Mom myself. I thought I needed to talk to Chelsea and ask her at least to take care of her own son. Putting all the burden on Mom isn't right. But Chelsea irrationally lashed out. Huh? We're living together to help her out. Mom should do at least that much. You don't have kids, Taylor. You don't know how hard parenting is. Childless housewife shouldn't interfere. That's no way to talk. You said you'd take care of Mom, but it looks like she's the one taking care of you. Don't twist the conversation and attack me. Chelsea, red-faced with anger, yelled even more. Shut up! You're always so argumentative and annoying. If you don't like how I do things, stay out of it. With that, she forced me out of the house. I hadn't even come to see her in the first place. Since then, it's been hard for me to return home. So I kept in touch with Mom over the phone. One day, she told me she had moved into a care facility. I was furious that Chelsea hadn't consulted me, and we had another fight. Our relationship, already strained, was at its worst. I visited Mom regularly at the facility, but Chelsea never did. Thankfully, the care facility seemed to be of good quality, and Mom was living comfortably. Her pension was enough to cover the expenses. It was probably more peaceful and less burdensome for her than being saddled with household chores and childcare. So I continued my days, keeping an eye on Mom's condition. Then I unexpectedly received a call from Chelsea. I was on edge. It's rare for Chelsea to call. I had a bad feeling. Was she going to ask for something troublesome? Or had something happened to Mom? With tension, I answered the phone. Hello, what's up? Chelsea started talking in an annoyed tone. I'm bringing Mom back to the family home for Christmas. So Taylor, help me with the caregiving. Wait, what do you mean? Mom wants to spend Christmas at home. My husband and I are too busy. So you help Mom, okay? I was surprised by this sudden request. All right then, thanks. Wait, hang on. And just like that, the call ended. I thought about how self-centered Chelsea always is, but decided to check with Mom anyway. When I visited her at the facility, yes, Chelsea suggested it. I thought it would be nice to spend some time in that house again, Mom said. It sounded like Chelsea had made it seem like Mom wanted to return, but maybe she was just embarrassed to admit it was her idea. I felt happy, thinking Chelsea did care about Mom after all. So I decided to join in and take care of Mom. Orlan and Kyla smiled and told me to go. So I prepared to visit my family home for the first time in a while. And then Christmas came. I took Mom and headed to the family home. When we arrived, Chelsea greeted us. Good to see you. Once you put down the luggage, could you help with some things? Chelsea said as she let us in. Sure, what do you need help with? To my surprise, Chelsea demanded. Could you start by cleaning all the rooms? All of them? I exclaimed in shock. Chelsea with a cold gaze. I told you we're busy, didn't I? She retorted. Although I had my reservations, I decided to comply quietly, considering I had brought Mom here, and it was now my sister's house. As I started cleaning earnestly, Stuart began to interfere. He started messing up the areas I had just cleaned. Could you please stop that? Why? I'm just playing. It's troublesome if you mess up what I've just cleaned. Stuart continued to make a mess, unconcerned. The house was large, and cleaning was already challenging. Increasing the workload was the last thing I needed. So I spoke to him a bit more firmly. Can't you understand when I say stop? If you don't behave, I'll get angry. Then Stuart started crying loudly. Chelsea rushed over and yelled at me. What are you doing making him cry? I can't believe this. Well, he's messing up the place I just cleaned. Kids make messes, you know? That's what they do. This is why people without children just don't get it. I was infuriated by Chelsea's condescending attitude. But then Mom, I'll take care of Stuart, she said, stepping in between us. But Mom, hit your legs, you shouldn't. It's fine. I have a secret trick to keep Stuart quiet. Mom took out some snacks and comics from her bag and handed them to Stuart, who happily started eating and reading. Chelsea warned me. If you make him cry again, he'll have me to answer to. And then she left. Relieved, I resumed cleaning and finally finished, exhausted. Next, Chelsea handed me a note with a list of groceries. Go, buy everything on this list. Excuse me? Hurry up, before the relatives arrive. What? I was taken aback. Wait a minute. Are relatives coming too? Yes, they are. Is there a problem? We've never done this before. I thought it was just going to be our family. It's none of your business, Taylor. From now on, we're hosting lavish parties with relatives. It will boost our reputation. Is it okay to have Mom around so many people? She's not strong, you know. It might be too much for her. Chelsea snapped at me. Oh, stop it. I'm in charge of this house. Just do as you are told. I invited Mom to show the relatives how well I'm taking care of her. What? We lived with her, so it's only right we create an opportunity to be praised for it. I was shocked. She invited Mom from the care facility just for that? Can you just get moving? You're so slow, Taylor. Seriously, you're such a useless sister. We need to go big for the Christmas party, so make sure to buy plenty. Appetizers and steaks and get them from a department store or something. Chelsea ordered me around and then left the room. I was speechless. She wasn't thinking of Mom at all. She just wanted to use Mom to get praise from others. When I went to find Chelsea, she was lounging on the living room sofa, watching TV. She was making me work while planning to take all the credit herself. I suddenly felt everything was ridiculous. Being used like this, neither Mom nor I would be happy. I'd probably just be worked to the bone during the party. When I quietly told Mom what Chelsea had said, she was shocked. I thought I'd get to relax. I haven't mingled with relatives in years, and it makes me uneasy. And Chelsea invited me just for this? Mom, let's go back home today. I'll call Orland. I immediately phoned Orland and asked if it was okay to bring Mom to our place. After explaining, Orland and Kyla agreed. Of course, come over, Kyla said. Let's go back now, Mom. I ordered appetizers and steaks as Chelsea instructed and pack up. I could hear my sister and her husband and Stuart chatting in the living room. We're having a feast today. Lots of appetizers and steaks. Yay, awesome. I can drink lots of beer too. Leaving everything to me and expecting to have fun is not how the world works. After packing, I put the bags in the car and helped Mom inside. Then I went back inside and headed to the living room. To my overly excited sister and her husband, I said, "Well, I'm heading home now."
What? Wait, Taylor. What are you talking about? What about the cooking? The appetizers? You should do what you were asked to.
Chelsea berated me. "Don't worry, I've ordered the appetizers and steaks as you asked." This made Chelsea a bit quieter.
But who will take care of Mom? I asked you to look after her.
"Don't worry, Mom's already in the car."
Wait, what? That makes no sense. I need to show the relatives I'm taking care of Mom.
What's the point of lying? Even without Mom and me, you can still enjoy your lavish party, right? Chelsea's face turned red with anger.
Why are you speaking so formally all of a sudden, Taylor? Bring Mom back right now. I won't return her until after the party.
Faced with Chelsea's unreasonable anger, I firmly told her, "Please, don't use Mom and me for your convenience. We're cutting ties with you." With that, I left the house and got into the car. My sister and her husband stood there, faces pale, watching me. We then headed to my in-laws' house. Orland and Kyla warmly welcomed Mom. "I hope you don't mind eating what I've made. We have beef stew and appetizers." Despite her modesty, Kyla's cooking is quite delicious. Mom, visibly moved, said, "Oh, this is delicious," as she enjoyed the appetizers. Mom and Kyla, being close in age, got along very well. I thought to myself that I should have brought Mom here from the start. I saw dozens of calls from Chelsea on my phone, but I didn't want to deal with her that day. So I turned off my mobile and enjoyed the party with the four of us. Then, after the New Year, my sister and her husband suddenly showed up at my in-laws' place.
Taylor, what have you done? Why didn't you pay for the appetizers and steaks?
They were angry about the bill for the food I had ordered.
Because of you, Taylor, we had to pay a bill of $2,000. Pay us back right now.
They demanded unreasonably. I calmly responded, "I only ordered because you asked me to. Since I didn't attend, I don't owe you anything, right?"
Shut up! We don't want to suffer this loss. You're my sister, so you should listen to me.
Chelsea was unreasonable again. Then Mom spoke up.
Enough, Chelsea. You're hopeless.
Taylor worked hard cleaning the house, even though you two weren't getting along. Yet you never thank her and tried to get praise without doing anything. You should be ashamed. Even before I went to the facility, you persuaded me to let you inherit the house, promising to take care of me. But then you did nothing and dumped all the chores and childcare on me. Despite that, you're my child, and I've always loved you unconditionally. But when I hurt my legs, you quickly put me in a facility. You haven't even visited me once in almost a year. Taylor and I are done with you. We've told all the relatives and neighbors about your behavior."
What?
The relatives said they won't go to your place anymore. And you know how the neighbors love to gossip. Some of your old classmates live in the area too. I'm sure they know all about this soon.
That's unbelievable.
Don't think everything will always go your way. People who mistreat others end up being treated the same way. Maybe it's time for you to reflect on yourself, Chelsea. But we won't have anything to do with you anymore. My sister and her husband were ashen-faced. Orland then delivered the final blow. "Can you leave now? If you come back uninvited, we won't hesitate to call the police." Hearing police, they hurriedly left. The gossip of police involvement would make it impossible for them to live in that house anymore. The neighbors reportedly avoid them now. Chelsea has become reclusive, but I feel no sympathy. It's her own doing. Meanwhile, I live happily with Orland and Kyla, regularly visiting Mom at the facility. She has made many friends there and says she is happier than when she was at home. I'm committed to cherishing my family and living each day with them.
Oh, you're still single? Pathetic for someone your age. I encountered my ex-husband in a fancy Chinese restaurant. His words were as sarcastic as ever, stirring irritation in me. Amidst our conversation, my sister, whom he had eloped with, appeared. Facing my ex-husband's declaration of their upcoming marriage, I couldn't help but mock him. What? You didn't tell her? I was about to drop a bombshell on my jubilant ex-husband. My name is Marie. I'm a 39-year-old housewife. I married Ken, who works in the transport industry, about 2 years ago. We met at the company where I was an office clerk. His bright and energetic demeanor left a good impression on me, and I made the first move. His friendly nature and masculine charm were what drew me to him. It was love at first sight. He reciprocated my feelings, and we married within 6 months. During our courtship, I thought he was kind and personable, but after marriage, he changed completely. It became routine for him to yell at me. At times, his behavior was dehumanizing. I never imagined married life would be this painful and difficult. Every day was gloomy, and I even started to fear my husband. Ken was a short-distance delivery driver, not a long-haul trucker. If he had been on long trips, I might have had some respite, but his job involved delivering numerous packages to various locations daily. He'd usually be home by evening. Early in our marriage, I expressed a desire to work. I want to contribute to our finances. Working together would mean more savings, and it'll help if we have children. At that moment, he slammed his drink down on the table and began berating me. Are you saying my income isn't enough? I never meant that. His drunken rage was terrifying. As he looked ready to throw the glass at me, I hastily tried to appease him. No, that's not it. I just don't want to be a burden to you. So you think you're better than me, huh? Who do you think provides this lifestyle? Your earnings wouldn't even matter, so don't act all high and mighty. It became clear after marriage that he was paranoid and emotionally unstable, something I hadn't seen while we were dating. The thought of spending my life with him filled me with immense anxiety. Then, an event stoked these fears even more. I'm so happy Marie married my son. I worried he'd never bring home a girlfriend, let alone get married. This happened at a Christmas gathering at my parents-in-law's house. My parents-in-law were really kind people, and they also cared for me very much. When we got married, they were as happy as if we had given birth to our own child. They were genuinely kind people, especially my mother-in-law Jessica and father-in-law Daniel. They cared for me dearly. The only solace in my stifling marriage was meals with my in-laws. But even in front of them, my husband began to make a spectacle of me. It all started at that family gathering. Aren't I lucky to have such a beautiful wife? Look at mine. She's gotten so out of shape. A relative joked about his wife, who playfully retorted while pinching his belly, lightening the mood. Then my husband chimed in. What are you talking about? Marie's figure is so bad, she barely looks like a woman. Your wife is way more elegant and attractive. His unexpected and revealing remarks left me speechless. Though the male relatives told him to stop, everyone else was laughing as if it were a great joke. The only one who seemed to sense something was wrong was my father-in-law. Marie, go to the kitchen. Help Jessica with the dinner preparations there. Daniel said to me, visibly shaken. This gave me a chance to escape the scene, and I hurried to the kitchen with Jessica. Overwhelmed with grief, I broke into tears. Jessica consoled me like a mother. Daniel, on the other hand, scolded everyone for laughing and drinking, persuading them to apologize to me. Everyone apologized except for my drunken husband, who was defiant. A husband apologizing to his wife? That's why Dad is always mocked by Mom. Can't you maintain some dignity? This inexplicably led to a father-son argument. The gathering ended early, and from that day, the relationship between Daniel and my husband deteriorated. My visits to my husband's family home became almost non-existent. From then on, my life was a living hell. Deprived of my only joy, I lost all hope and grew weaker day by day. I couldn't find the energy to do household chores, and my husband would scream at me whenever he remembered that day.
You must have said something to Dad and them. You made me a laughingstock in front of everyone. How are you going to make this right?
His threatening demeanor left me in constant fear. I was emotionally exhausted. Living on the 10th floor of a condominium, I sometimes wondered if jumping off would end my misery. When one is mentally drained, rational thinking becomes impossible. And that was exactly my state. I wished he would just kill me. That's when I thought about that. It was then that my sister visited. "You haven't been in touch lately, so I got worried, Marie. You look terrible," said my sister Michelle, who is 3 years older than me and works nights. A popular figure in her job, Michelle appears much younger than her age and was a top earner at her previous workplace. It was unusual for her to visit unannounced, so I asked her why. She was in the area to check on her new shop's construction and decided to stop by on her way back. "Trouble with your husband?" Michelle and I have always been close. She was overjoyed at my wedding, crying with happiness. I just want to disappear. "What happened?" Seeing my sister, tears welled up in my eyes as I shared my suffering. The daily harassment from my husband, living in a tortuous prison, thinking about ending it all. Hearing all this, Michelle was furious and wanted to confront my husband immediately. But the thought of what would happen to me if she did was terrifying. I begged her through tears not to do it. Seeing my state, Michelle calmed down and started pondering a solution. After a moment of silence, an idea seemed to strike her. She whispered something in my ear with a bright expression. Shocked, I asked her if she was serious. "Can you really do that?" "Who do you think I am?" She was brimming with confidence. Though it seemed like something Michelle could do, the risk, if it were discovered, made me anxious. "Don't you want to break free from here?" Seeing my hesitation, Michelle became serious, ultimately leaving the decision up to me. Hearing her words, I made up my mind and agreed to her plan. I decided to go along with my sister's plan. From that day, she started visiting daily. "People who harass others usually want to look good in public. If I'm here, he can't do anything strange to you." And so, for several months, until her shop was ready, my sister stopped by every day. At first, my husband seemed uneasy, but he gradually warmed up to her as they drank together daily. My sister would get him drunk and stay until he fell asleep.
"Since you're always here for a fun drink, why not stay over once in a while?"
My now fond husband suggested. When she tried to leave, he'd act childishly, refusing to let her go, a side of him I'd never seen. But she always declined. "I'll come again tomorrow," she'd say with a graceful face. For my husband, these moments with my sister were like a dream. He was completely charmed by her, paying no attention to me anymore. Then, when my sister's shop was about to reopen, a crisis occurred.
"I'm divorcing you,"
my husband suddenly declared. Naturally, I was shocked and demanded an explanation. Why divorce all of a sudden?
"I've found someone I care about more than you. I'll be happy with her. This is the end for us. Leave the house."
His selfish reasons were unacceptable to me, and I refused to agree to the divorce. But he was prepared for that, coldly stating he'd involve a lawyer. Later, during a discussion with a lawyer present, he continued his unbelievable tirade.
"Is money all you want? How much do you need? Just name your price and let's end this."
He was clear about his lack of love for me. Willing to pay to get rid of our marriage, his words dripping with annoyance. The lawyer, seemingly uncomfortable, showed me documents about standard settlements, looking at me with concern. So you have no love left for me. I guess your heart is with... Realizing who he had in mind, I hung my head. Understanding resistance was futile, and accepting the divorce terms. Fine, I'll ask for $30,000. It was a sum usually not granted without infidelity. But he didn't hesitate, likely thinking he could easily earn it back. He rejoiced at the thought of an uncomplicated divorce, unaware of the true situation. I watched him with a meaningful, cunning smile. The divorce proceedings moved forward without him ever realizing my true feelings. However, my agreement to the divorce was strongly opposed by his parents. When I went to inform them, they scolded him and defended me.
What are you thinking?
That's right. Marie has been so devoted to our family, and now you want a divorce? To leave for someone you like is utterly childish. Jessica tearfully tried to convince him, while Daniel, red-faced and agitated, reprimanded him. But to him, their words seemed only a nuisance. He picked his ear and frowned in annoyance.
What does it matter if Marie agrees to it?
That's only because you pushed her into it with a lawyer. It was clear they didn't want the divorce. They truly cared for me like their own child, and the thought of us parting saddened them. Their pleas echoed my guilt for betraying them. I loved them too, and wished I could have remained their daughter. If my husband hadn't turned out this way, perhaps I could have had a happy life with them. Regret was all I felt, and tears involuntarily spilled from my eyes.
Really, they're so annoying. I'm done with you, Marie. I'm going to marry someone important and be happy. No more complaints.
My husband, infuriated by my parents-in-law's words, began to shout and defy them. Of course, they would never approve of such a marriage, and my husband was told off on the spot. Thus, he left his parents' home and eloped with the woman he loved, finalizing our divorce. Half a year later, I was at a fancy Chinese restaurant, enjoying a meal with my parents when it happened.
Isn't that Marie?
It was my ex-husband who called out to me as I stepped out to make a phone call.
It's been a while. You're still alive, huh?
His usual condescending tone distorted my face involuntarily. I must have been glaring at him with a furrowed brow.
What's with that face? If you have something to say it.
Even in public, he looked down on me with a cold stare, though he didn't yell. I turned my face away, holding back my anger.
You can't even stand up for yourself. But you've gotten bolder, huh? Have you found a boyfriend or two since then?
My provocative attitude seemed funny to him, and he laughed mockingly. This insensitivity was something I came to know only after marrying him. I hated myself for not realizing it sooner. It doesn't matter to you anymore. Even though I didn't answer, he presumptuously decided I had no lover, taunting me continuously. He let out a mocking laugh as he continued to provoke me.
Oh, still single. Pitiful for someone your age.
He leaned in, looking triumphant, about to mock me further when, "Oh, Ken and Marie, I didn't expect to find you here." My sister entered the restaurant and called out to us.
Michelle, perfect timing. I was just about to tell Marie.
My ex-husband's face lit up vulgarly as he put his arm around my sister. I watched calmly, giving him a chilly look.
I was going to tell you that Michelle and I are getting married.
He pulled my sister closer, beaming proudly. I had easily guessed the reason for my divorce was his actions towards my sister. Instead of feeling hurt, I looked at them emotionlessly.
Sorry, I'm the one getting happy here. But hey, you're not bad looking. Maybe you'll find someone. I'm off to build a happy home with my girlfriend.
He was about to continue when, "Sorry, Ken, I can't marry you." My sister gently brushed off his hand and spoke cheerfully. Confused, he stared at her, not understanding the situation. "Actually, I never had any feelings for you."
Wait, what do you mean?
He couldn't grasp what was happening. I mockingly echoed in feigned surprise. Oh, you didn't know?
What do you mean, didn't know?
Michelle seducing you was all a scheme between Michelle and me, all to get you to divorce me. I walked beside my sister, and we exchanged smiles, looking at each other. My ex-husband looked on, unable to comprehend, clearly confused.
Play acting? Huh?
Thanks to Michelle's seduction, I got a good amount of compensation from you and a divorce. I am truly grateful. During the divorce, I obviously got half of our assets, which meant $30,000 plus $25,000 of our savings came to me. Refusing the divorce that day was all part of the act, a scheme orchestrated by Michelle to get money from him. Michelle told me to make sure I got all the money I could from you. I desperately wanted the divorce, but agreeing too quickly might have aroused suspicion, so I played along.
There's no way Michelle would say such a thing.
My ex-husband couldn't accept the truth and kept denying my words. I tilted my head, feigning confusion.
Michelle is going to marry me. She wouldn't say such terrible things.
To take such business talk seriously, I was merely entertaining a client as part of my job. Michelle, looking troubled, spoke with her eyebrows furrowed. Putting her hand on her cheek, she said with a sigh, I was only entertaining you as a client. I never had any feelings for you. Sorry for getting your hopes up.
You mean you've been deceiving me all this time? For half a year?
You were a good customer. You were the top spender in my shop. So prideful, always striving to match what others spent. It was quite adorable. Michelle spoke with a mocking laugh. My ex-husband, completely fooled by her act, shouted in the restaurant.
So everything about wanting to be with me and asking me to leave Marie was all a lie?
Of course. Who would want to be with a man who harasses others?
What?
Michelle's sharp words angered him further, and he became visibly agitated. I cautiously watched their exchange, touching my mobile phone discreetly. It was hard to make you fall for me, but your simplicity helped. I couldn't leave my husband, you know. In reality, Michelle was already married, her husband working as a bodyguard. She had persuaded my ex-husband to leave me, claiming she was getting a divorce too. For my ex-husband, who had little experience with romance, her pursuit was a delight. A sense of superiority in stealing her from someone else.
So all that about taking time with the divorce was?
Of course, a lie. My husband and I are perfectly happy. At that moment, a man appeared from behind, approaching with a smile.
Nice to meet you. My wife has told me a lot about you. Incredible.
This is my husband, Steve. I invited you here today to introduce you. Michelle, arm in arm with her husband, Steve, smiled brightly, showing off their happiness to my ex-husband. He turned pale, his face a mix of anger and sadness. It's a shame you wasted half a year. Disowned by your family, and now with nowhere to go? Really pitiful. As I whispered these words, my ex-husband, overwhelmed, reached out to grab my collar in frustration. But Steve skillfully stopped him, treating him like a child.
What do you know about my feelings? This year I spent pursuing her. Do you understand that?
I don't want to understand. You dare to talk high and mighty after playing with people's lives? Do you know how much pain you caused me? I raised my voice, letting my tears and pent-up emotions flow, confronting him with all my suppressed feelings. Being ridiculed in front of relatives, your attitude towards Jessica and the others. I will never forgive all the things you did during our marriage. You deserve to see hell. Turning around, I called out for someone to come. Then my ex-husband's parents, my parents, and even his relatives appeared from the room behind. Let's show them your true self and how pitiful you really are. While he looked puzzled, I played the voice recorder I got from my sister, playing his cringeworthy sweet talk to her. Are you really going to leave Marie?
Of course. I don't need someone who's only good for housework. I prefer someone with an adult and attractive figure like you, Michelle.
His voice dripping with smugness as he hit on my sister was cringe-inducing. Despite the discomfort, I continued playing the recording, exposing my ex-husband in front of our relatives.
But you liked Marie, didn't you?
Housemaid? I never really liked her. I married her just to boost my own status. No real feelings involved.
The relatives showed their disgust at my husband's words. He began to rage, demanding to stop the recording. But Steve, strong and determined, held him back, even as he shouted in protest.
She was always obedient to me, just a little threat, and she'd comply, more of a servant than a wife. I have no attachment or regrets about her.
Hearing this evidence of his harassment, my in-laws distorted their faces in anger, and everyone unanimously condemned him. He was completely alienated, criticized by everyone.
You're a disgrace to our family. How could you say such things about your own wife?
It's shameful for a man to act like this. I'm embarrassed he's part of our family. While everyone looked at him with disdain, I spoke to him in a cold tone. You have no one on your side anymore. Understand this and never come near our family again. I never want to see your face again. I triumphantly stopped the voice recorder and asked Steve to escort my ex-husband out. He struggled to respond, but it was futile, and he was thrown out of the restaurant. Even after the doors were locked, he caused a scene outside until the police were called and took him away. My sister and I high-fived, sharing joy in our successful revenge. We ordered food for a celebratory party, and everyone comforted me for my struggles and suffering. It was good to book the whole restaurant. I'm glad everyone can enjoy themselves without worry, my sister remarked, having arranged the venue. I expressed my gratitude to my sister for everything, enjoying a meal together for the first time in a while. This marked my successful revenge on my ex-husband. After that, he reportedly stalked my sister, resulting in police involvement and a painful lesson from Steve. He never dared to show up again after being intimidated by Steve. 13 years have passed since then, and I now handle the accounting for my sister's shop. I still keep in touch with my in-laws, occasionally going out for meals with them. I am forever grateful to my sister for saving me from my hell. As I work hard alongside her, I vowed to repay this immense debt of gratitude someday. My name is Olivia. This happened about half a month ago. I received a call from my mother-in-law, Lily, inviting me to a memorial ceremony. Yes, I'll come. I replied cheerfully, but inside I felt down. A memorial ceremony means Tommy and the others will be there too, right? That was my worry. My husband Ken and I got married about 3 years ago. During a family meeting back then, Ken's sister-in-law Emma said to me when the in-laws weren't around, "You're kind of plain. Disappointing to have someone like you as a sister-in-law." I was furious, of course, but I didn't want to make a scene, so I pretended not to hear. Then Ken's brother-in-law Tommy added,
"I don't mind if you're plain or poor."
"Poor?"
"Yeah, your family's just average, right?"
"Well, yes."
"Then you're poor. Not a good match for our family."
They mocked me like that. Ken noticed and stepped in quickly, so the conversation ended there, but it still hurt. What was that about? Even with all their money, they're poor in character. I complained later, but it was just a petty response. Because of that, I still don't like Tommy and his wife. No, it's more accurate to say I hate them. I don't want to see Tommy, but I already told Lily I'd come. Regretting, I went to the in-laws' house for the memorial ceremony. Their family runs a big company locally, so at their memorial ceremony, there were many guests. One after another, people arrived and greeted the in-laws. Ken and Tommy were greeting people too, while I stayed behind the scenes with Emma. Even while busy, Emma said to me, "I'm surprised a poor person like you showed up." "I'm not poor, and I came because Lily invited me." "Really? You're not here for the ceremony money?" "Of course not." "I can't believe it." Emma looked at me with disdain. It's really infuriating. Judging people by their appearance, always labeling them as poor? What kind of upbringing did this person have? I'd like to see their parents' faces, I muttered under my breath. Then, as if responding to my comment, Tommy's voice came. I'd like to see the family of a poor person, too. Tommy? You must have a plain face like yours, right? Tommy said, and I clammed up. Seeing me silent, Tommy gloated. From now on, can you not show your face around us? It's unpleasant just seeing a plain poor person. Yeah, Tommy's right. Emma agreed with Tommy's words. I was so angry that I was about to retort. But then Lily came over to us. What's going on? I could hear voices from over there. No, Lily, it's nothing. Emma hastily covered up. Lily looked at me with concern. Olivia, you don't look well. Are you okay? Oh yes, I'm just a little tired. So, we were about to have dinner, Lily said, and then Tommy exaggeratedly interrupted. No, Mom. What's the matter, Tommy? Ken and Olivia are going home now. Going home? Lily turned to me. Of course I had no recollection of saying such a thing. So they're telling us to leave. I realized immediately, but I wasn't sure how to respond. As I hesitated, Ken approached. Sorry, but we have an early start tomorrow. Is that so, Ken? Yeah, so we're heading back now. Then let's have dinner another time, Lily said, smiling at me. Then Ken and I quickly left the in-laws' house. As we left the in-laws' house, Emma quickly followed us. Miss, Lily asked me to give this to you. Emma handed me something that looked like a thank you gift. Avoiding eye contact with a dissatisfied expression. Thank you for going out of your way. I responded indifferently. Then Emma sneered. Running away suits you. Running away? That's right. Just run away and never show your face to us again. Emma spat out these words. If I could, I would. Ken replied calmly, making Emma's face turn red. What did you say? Are you mocking us? We're only doing what you asked, not to show our faces. Don't be ridiculous, you poor thing. That's exactly what I mean by mocking. My apologies then. We'll be leaving now. Ken quickly put his hand on my back and started walking. After walking a bit, Ken apologized to me. Olivia, I'm really sorry. Why are you apologizing, Ken? Because of what Tommy and Emma did. You don't have to worry about it. But I feel responsible for you being called poor because of me. Ken sighed deeply. It's been a while since I've seen Ken this downcast, maybe since the day we first met. That thought brought back memories of our first meeting. I met Ken when I was a university student. At that time, I was in the midst of job hunting. Hearing about a second round of recruitment at a local Boston company, I rushed onto a rush hour train for an interview. Then I made a big mistake. It happened when the train arrived at the station. Trying to get off, I was pushed by the crowd and dropped the envelope I was carrying. Oh no, my resume is in there. I reached out to pick it up, but lost it in the crowd. Where did it go? As the crowd thinned, I frantically started searching for the envelope. While looking around, I suddenly heard a voice from behind. Excuse me, are you looking for this? I turned around to see a man holding the envelope containing my resume. That's it! I lunged for the envelope, but it was wrinkled and had footprints on it. No, my resume is inside. They won't read it now, it's ruined. Just as I thought that, the man who picked up the envelope said, What's inside? Oh, it's my resume. I was going for an interview, but it's okay now. Sorry I stepped on it. No, it's my fault for dropping it. We both felt down. There was no time to rewrite it now. I decided to give up, thinking it wasn't meant to be. I took the dirty envelope, ready to go home. But the man, seeing me about to leave, said, It's too early to give up. I'll go with you and apologize. But, which company's interview is it? If I know the company, I can help guide you. The company I'm going to is... I told him about the company I was headed to. The man's expression brightened instantly. Then it's all right. But with this resume? It's fine. Dad won't mind something like this. He said with a smile. This man was my now husband, Ken. The company I was headed to for the interview was, in fact, Ken's family's business. Afterward, I went to the company with Ken, and he explained the situation to his father, Sam. I managed to have the interview successfully and got the job. Ken was kind to me after I joined the company, and we started dating. That leads to us getting married about 3 years ago. Thinking back, he was even more upset than me at that time. Remembering all this, I couldn't help but smile. Ken, unaware of my thoughts, continued with a downcast expression.
It's my fault, isn't it? I left the company a year ago.
What do you mean?
Remember, I left Dad's company a year ago. That's why Tommy and the others are acting up. I'm really sorry.
Ken apologized, looking guilty. Tommy and the others had been mocking me since we first met, but their taunts were directed only at me. Ken never received any bad remarks before. But that changed a year ago, with his resignation. Ken, having graduated from university, worked at Sam's company. He was one of the heirs apparent, holding a fairly high position. Then, one day a year ago, Ken came home from work and said to me,
Olivia, I quit my job.
Why? I was obviously shocked. With a normal company, there could be various reasons, like downsizing due to poor performance. But Ken worked at Sam's company. Even if he had made a mistake, it's hard to imagine him being fired on the spot. It's more likely that people would have tried to downplay the issue. Yet without any warning, Ken quit. Confused, I asked him again, why did you quit?
There were various things.
Tommy or Sam?
No, well, it's a bit.
Ken hesitated. It seemed like a difficult topic for him to bring up. Then it can't be helped. I sighed. Then I told Ken. Got it. Do you have another job lined up?
Olivia, aren't you angry?
Why would I be?
Your husband just quit his job on his own. Normally, this is where divorce comes up.
What? What are you talking about?
Well, because there'll be no salary.
Listen, I didn't marry money. I married you. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Money's important, but it's not everything, right?
That's true, but...
Let's take this opportunity to show Tommy and the others that we can be happy without money. After I said that, Ken suddenly looked down. With tears in his eyes, he kept his head bowed.
Sorry, Olivia, and thank you.
All right, then starting tomorrow, we'll work hard on living frugally. Thus, Ken left Sam's company. Afterward, he switched to a cleaning company that had a contract with Sam's company. It was owned by an acquaintance of Sam's, but that was it. Ken's salary was typical for a mid-career hire, and his work was the same as other employees. It involved dirty jobs and overtime. It must have been tough for Ken, who was used to intellectual work. Still, he never complained and kept working. Of course, I did everything I could, too. I started part-time at a grocery store and suggested moving to a cheaper apartment. I focused on cooking economical meals and avoided luxury items. We tried our best to live happily on a small income, but Tommy didn't care about that. Seeing our reduced income, he mocked Ken like this.
Dragged down by a poor person. Now you're officially a poor couple. Congratulations.
Moreover, Emma said to me, You moved to a moldy apartment, right? It's not moldy. You don't have to pretend. I'll give you a housewarming gift. A housewarming gift? Yes, this. Emma handed me insecticide and disinfectant wipes. Seeing my grimace, Emma said, You'll need a lot of these, right? Your old apartment must be full of pests. Thank you. I responded with sarcasm, but Emma just smiled maliciously. No need to thank me. It's the richest duty to give to the poor. I see. I could only respond coldly. So Tommy and Emma began to belittle not only me, but also Ken. But I might be reaching my limit. I sighed. Then Ken gently hugged me.
I've caused you so much trouble, Olivia. From now on, I'll go to my parents' house alone.
It's okay.
No, you don't have to go.
But if I don't, Lily will...
It's fine. I'll say you're not feeling well or something. I'll make excuses.
Okay, thank you, Ken. After this conversation, I decided that the memorial ceremony at the in-laws' house would be my last visit. However, the decision to avoid the in-laws' house was something Ken and I made together. The in-laws knew nothing about it, so they kept inviting us over. But each time I made excuses not to attend. It seemed like the in-laws were worried about me, but there was nothing I could do. Meanwhile, Tommy and Emma were floating. They bragged to employees and acquaintances that the house and company were now theirs. It was frustrating to say the least. Still, I didn't have the right to correct them. Even when I heard such stories from people at Sam's company, All I could do was let them pass by. Then one day, I got a call from Lily after a long time.
Olivia, how's your health?
Well. Having used health issues as an excuse to stay away from the in-laws' house, I could only give a vague response. Sensing my situation, Lily hesitantly asked,
Actually, we're planning a family trip.
A family trip?
The husband got invited by a luxury hotel. They said, please come with your family.
I thought about how different it is for wealthy families when Lily continued with concern.
So I thought it would be good for you, Olivia, and I booked for the whole family.
For me?
You haven't been coming to the house recently because you've been feeling unwell. I thought you could relax there. They even have a pool.
I was moved to tears by Lily's thoughtfulness. Moreover, Lily shared a secret episode with me. Hearing that, I'll go, I immediately said. But after hanging up, I felt a bit of regret. I might cause trouble with Tommy and Emma and inconvenience the in-laws. The thought made me hesitant. Still, having committed to going, I had to be prepared. When Ken came home, I told him the situation, and we decided to go on the family trip. On the day of the trip, as we arrived at the meeting point at the station, Tommy and Emma were already waiting. Emma spotted us and approached briskly. Why did you come, you poor thing? As a son's wife and an outsider? Could you not act like you're part of the family? If I, as a son's wife, am not family, then Emma, you also are a son's wife, so you are not either, right? What? I'm the wife of the eldest son. I'm the family who'll bear the important heir. Her self-serving logic was exasperating. While this was happening, Lily and Sam arrived. Lily immediately came over to me.
It's been a while, Olivia.
It has been. Nice to see you.
I'm glad you're looking well. Enjoy the trip.
I will. I glanced at Emma, who seemed quite frustrated. Internally saying, serves you right, to myself. I followed Lily towards Sam. We then took a train to a high-end hotel in a famous tourist area. As we walked through a street lined with souvenir shops, Lily said,
There's a store my husband and I want to visit. Could you go ahead to the hotel?
Sure, I can take care of your bags. Emma volunteered like a child.
Oh, thank you. Then I'll leave it to you.
Lily said this and went off somewhere with Sam. As soon as the in-laws were out of sight, Emma started complaining to me. Can't you just go back even now? Why should I? Because I don't want to travel with a poor person. We can't go back now. Everything is already booked. You can make up some urgent matter. No, I won't. I firmly refused and started walking towards the hotel. Emma Grumpy followed me. Then from behind, she threatened. If you won't go back, I'll make you. What? Nowadays, you can cancel reservations over the phone or online. Emma took out her mobile phone. Please stop. I grabbed her arm. At that moment, Tommy's loud voice echoed around us.
So desperate to stay at a luxury hotel, huh? You poor thing.
Turning around, Tommy stood with his arms crossed, glaring at Ken and me.
Tommy, cut it out. I'm getting angry too.
Ken retorted sternly. But Tommy unfazed.
I get why a poor person wants to stay at a luxury hotel, but you're just a nuisance to the family. You get that, right? I don't understand you at all, Tommy. Enough. Have you lost your mind along with your money, Tommy?
Tommy pointed at Ken. I had reached my breaking point. Furious, I approached Tommy without holding back. Always going on about being poor. What do you want to say? The value of money is different for everyone.
Huh. A poor person like you talking about the value of money? Poor people should just stay quiet.
Shut up. No matter how much money you have, it's worthless if your character is this bad.
What? Are you saying I have a bad character?
Oh, didn't you realize? You're incredibly spiteful.
Just shut up and listen.
Tommy tried to grab me. At that moment, Ken stepped in between us. He grabbed Tommy's arm and said,
If you dislike us so much, why don't you just cut ties? That's right, I'll throw you out,
Tommy shouted, just as Lily's voice came from behind.
The one leaving is you, Tommy. Mom.
Tommy turned around in a panic. He quickly straightened his clothes and approached Lily.
Mom, I didn't do anything.
Didn't do anything? I know everything. Lily scolded Tommy. Emma, looking flustered, joined in. It's not like that, Lily. It's Olivia who...
How shameful. You really don't know anything.
Don't know anything? Tommy and Emma looked puzzled. In front of them, Lily started to recount the episode she had told me. It was a story from just over a year ago. Ken, who was working at Sam's company at the time, was heading to a client. Normally, he would use a company car for such trips, but that day all the cars were in use. So Ken took the train to the client. Getting off at the station near the client's office, Ken found a young boy about elementary school age, looking around the platform, clearly searching for something. Ken saw himself in that boy, reminiscent of when we first met. So he approached the boy.
"What's wrong, kid?" "I dropped my wallet."
The boy explained that he lived in Portland. His parents were busy with work and hardly had time to go out with him, so he decided to visit his relative's house alone. He had his parents' permission, but soon realized he'd lost his wallet.
"So you were looking for your wallet?"
"Yeah, I can't get home without it." The boy looked close to tears, but where he lost the wallet was unknown. Ken, feeling sorry for the boy, gave him a few $10 bills.
"Use this to get to your relatives. You can borrow the fare for the return trip."
"Really?"
"Of course, and remember to report your lost wallet to the station staff."
"Got it." Ken was about to rush to his appointment, but then the boy stopped him. Ken thought the boy wanted to return the money.
"I'm in a hurry. You don't need to give it back,"
Ken said. But the boy said, "To me, a few tens may not seem much, but to you, it might be worth more, right?" At first, Ken didn't understand what he meant. As he listened more, he realized the boy's point. To the receiver, the money is just its face value, but for the giver, it's earned with the support of family and friends. Therefore, having money means that you have that much support. Thus, giving money carelessly to a stranger, especially a child, isn't right. The boy shared these thoughts, not necessarily correct. But Ken was moved by the education the boy received about the value of money. He followed the boy's wishes. Eventually, the boy, insisting on returning the money, took Ken to his relative's house. There, the relatives thanked Ken and returned the money. By then, Ken was late for his appointment. The client was understanding, but someone didn't accept this. The person who didn't accept this was Tommy. Without listening to any reasons, he said,
"Unacceptable. Tardiness is tardiness. Take responsibility." "All right, Tommy, I'll resign."
And so Ken left the company. Lily concluded the story. "The child insisted on expressing his gratitude and invited us to the hotel."
"Wait, so staying at the luxury hotel is because—"
Emma turned to Ken with a look of surprise. Lily nodded. "Yes, he wanted to return the favor by offering his service."
"But he never mentioned such a thing."
Tommy snapped at Lily. Lily glared back. "You just didn't listen to the story." But, be quiet. More importantly, Sam has something to say to you." Lily turned, revealing Sam standing behind her. Sam approached with a stern face, showing Tommy a stack of documents.
"Do you know what this is, Tommy?" "Dad, is this from accounting?" "Yes, there were many oddities, so I had it investigated." "Oddities?"
Tommy's face filled with anxiety. I realized what was coming next. Ah, Tommy had done something wrong. Soon, Sam's angry voice filled the air.
"Tommy, you've been embezzling company funds." "That was my money. No, it's different, Dad." "What's different? The investigation results are in." But... Enough, no excuses. If you make excuses, I'll file a criminal complaint. Do you understand? Ugh.
Tommy collapsed to the ground, speechless. Sam then turned to Emma.
"Emma, you're complicit, aren't you?"
"No, I didn't."
"Buying up luxury brands, it seems."
When Sam said that, Lily pulled out a stack of receipts from her bag. Showing them one by one, she said to Emma, "I got copies from your favorite stores. You've been living quite comfortably, haven't you?"
"No, that's not true, Lily."
"What's not true? They're all in your name."
But this is my—"
"Paid for with company money, right? Be prepared for a lawsuit for damages." Lily smiled, her gentle tone somewhat more intimidating. Emma, trembling with anger, turned to Tommy.
"It's all Tommy's fault, everything."
"Don't blame me. It's because of your spending."
"Shut up. You're useless to me now."
"Why?"
"You're getting fired for misusing company funds. I have no use for a poor man."
"What? That's my line. I don't need you. We're getting a divorce."
After that, Tommy and Emma were sued by Sam for damages. Although criminal charges were not pursued, Tommy was kicked out of the house. Additionally, due to misconduct, he was fired from the company. Now he's working at a construction site from dawn to dusk to pay back the compensation demanded by Sam. Meanwhile, Emma divorced Tommy. Unable to pay the damages after the divorce, she turned to her parents, who quickly paid Sam. However, they were strict with Emma. They demanded she repay the money they spent. Left with no choices, Emma started working at a club. But without a steady clientele and struggling even to buy makeup, she became impoverished. She's now known as a poor person in her circles, living days filled with regret. As for Ken, he reunited with the child at the luxury hotel. When we greeted him, the boy thanked his parents for raising him to be praiseworthy. He's now striving to take over the family business as a way of giving back. He encouraged Ken to keep striving too. Hearing this, Ken nodded firmly. Later, persuaded by Sam, Kim rejoined Sam's company. He's now working hard to be Sam's successor. I too am making an effort to continue supporting Ken in his endeavors.
I'm Natalie, almost 60 years old. I have 3 kids, all grown up now, and 2 of them are married. My husband passed away in a car accident when I was 50. I was in the accident too and survived, but I lost my sight in both eyes. Luckily, my kids were adults by then. They helped a lot with everything around me until I got used to my new life. Now, my eldest son, Jack, and his wife, Brooklyn, live close by. They built their own house near mine and come to check on me from time to time. They offered to live with me, but I refused. I didn't want to be a burden on Brooklyn or make her feel uncomfortable. The house where we all lived together was too big for just me, especially with 2 floors. My kids were worried, so we sold it. Now I live alone in a small apartment. I managed to make a living from home-based work despite losing my sight. The shock was big at first, but now I've accepted it and feel stable in my life. Then one day my youngest son, James, told me he wants to get married. His partner's a colleague from work and they're about the same age. That's wonderful! Congratulations! I was thrilled, even though it was a phone call. I wanted to hug him and celebrate, but I kept my voice calm. However, James didn't sound too cheerful. Thanks. I was concerned, but didn't want to pry. He's an adult after all, and might not like his mom meddling. There's something else, James said hesitantly. I tensely waited for him to continue, wondering if it was bad news. She's pregnant. Oh, that's great news! I was relieved it wasn't something bad. Why was he so hesitant? Shotgun weddings aren't unusual these days, and a new life is a reason to celebrate. I was overjoyed, but James still sounded down. What's the matter? I couldn't help but ask. He just responded with a faint, and didn't elaborate. We'll bring her over soon. When are you free? He changed the subject. I guess he didn't want to talk about it. I told him any time was fine, worried, but not pressing further. He said he'd call back with a date and ended the call. I wondered why he sounded so down despite the happy news. I tilted my head. A few days later, the day to meet her arrived. I was nervous, checking the apartment repeatedly to make sure it wasn't messy. We had planned to go out for a meal, but she had some errands, so they couldn't stay long. I wanted to make it special, so I asked Brooklyn to buy some treats from a famous bakery, hoping she'd like them. The anticipation made me anxious. Hours later, the doorbell rang. I stood up and headed to the door. Coming in, I heard James' voice. Excuse us. A sweet young female voice chimed in. Then I felt James' presence as he walked in with her. Mom, let's sit. He guided me back to where I was before. I was prompted to sit and took my seat. Occasionally, I caught a whiff of a sweet scent, probably hers. Judging by her voice and smell, I imagined she was a cute girl. Welcome. Sorry about the cramped space, I said, facing where I thought she was. What is this place? I heard her mumble quietly. James softly chided her with a, "Stop it." Feeling a bit awkward, I stood up to make coffee, but James stopped me. "What are you doing?" He took my hand and helped me stand. I appreciated his kindness, but in front of his girlfriend, I worried he might seem too much like a mama's boy, so I gently removed his hand. "I'm just making coffee. Sit tight." "Don't touch the hot water. I'll do it. It's warm today, so I have iced coffee already. Don't worry." James is always so concerned about me. He calls often, not every day, but frequently, always asking if I need anything or if I've had any troubles or injuries. Sometimes I wonder who's the parent here. "Yuck, James, a mama's boy?" I heard her giggle. See, just as I thought. I asked James to sit down and expertly poured the coffee into cups, then brought out the treats I'd gotten earlier. "Sorry there's not much." "Really, feels low income," she remarked, laughing. James tried to stop her, but I waved him off, telling him it's okay since it was true. "Nice to meet you. I'm Madison," she said after a bit of laughter, finally calming down. I responded in kind. "Nice to meet you. I'm Natalie, James' mom." "Just the name sounds fancy." Madison burst out laughing again when I introduced myself. James scolded her more seriously, but it didn't seem to affect her. She continued making snide remarks, but I didn't let them bother me. Eventually, James, reaching his limit of frustration, left with Madison less than an hour after they arrived. He later apologized, but I reassured him that I wasn't upset, which seemed to calm him down. While it would be a lie to say I wasn't hurt at all at my age, I'm not about to dwell on every word from a young woman. Maybe it's just the difference in life experiences. Having gone through so much, I'm not easily upset by words like those. A few days later, James mentioned wanting to have a Meet the Families event. It makes sense since they're getting married and will become one big family. I agreed to the meet, but James seemed reluctant. "If you don't want to, it's okay to say no. After last time, I understand." James let out a heavy sigh in front of me. I couldn't help but laugh. "What are you saying? Don't worry about me. I'm not the kind of mom who gets down over words like that." "Maybe, but it's me who doesn't want to." I could almost picture his moody expression. I wondered what he was so averse to. I wish James wouldn't worry so much, given I'm okay. But maybe it's tough for him, being such a caring son. How about asking Jack to come along in Dad's place? He's good at handling these situations, and with Jack there, things won't get awkward. Jack, being a young CEO, is quite capable. He's good at communication, dealing with many adults, and could smooth things over if James gets upset again. Jack, huh? Yeah, maybe I should ask him. Don't want to leave you alone, Mom. James seemed okay with bringing Jack, so I called him to come to the Meet the Families. With Jack there, I wouldn't have any trouble getting around. Jack was also looking forward to meeting James' girlfriend and her parents. Jack had taken time off work for the meet, but an urgent matter came up, so he had to join us later at the restaurant. Brooklyn dropped me off at the restaurant, and I managed to arrive safely. She hurried to get Jack there too, but I told her there was no need to rush. Waiting outside, James took my hand and led me into the restaurant. The restaurant was quiet, with faint music playing in the background. It smelled like a fine dining establishment. We've got a private room set up. Madison's parents are already here, James informed me while guiding me. I felt a bit nervous, but entered the room. Sorry for being late. I'm Natalie, James's mom. I greeted as we entered. I heard chairs move as if someone stood up. Pleased to meet you. I'm Madison's mom, Avery. Come on, say hello. Hello, I'm Dad, Samuel. A cold, unfriendly male voice followed a soft female one. James guided me to a seat. Everyone's here, so let's order something. What would you like, Natalie? Can you eat seafood? Any allergies or dislikes? Feeling the tension in the air, Avery kindly asked me. I smiled towards the voice. Thank you for asking. I'm fine with anything. I'll choose for Mom. Should we get some drinks? How about alcohol? James and Avery smoothly decided on the food and drinks. Madison was silent, and occasionally I heard Samuel chewing loudly. Avery seemed nice, but I couldn't form a good impression of Samuel. I kept smiling, trying not to show my thoughts. That smile is creepy, Samuel remarked, clearly annoyed. Stop it, Avery quickly interjected. I felt awkward and relaxed my smile a bit. Can she really not see? Hey! Ignoring Avery's protest, Samuel's voice grew closer, as if he was leaning forward, testing my reaction. It was frustrating to be treated this way by an adult, not much different from me. Despite Avery's efforts, Samuel kept laughing and making derogatory remarks. Seriously, marrying someone with parents like this? You can't be happy. She'll just be a burden. Madison, you should reconsider, he said, sounding bored with my lack of reaction. Madison laughed, replying, Well, we have a kid on the way. No choice there, right? Fortunately, James isn't a low income like you, but an elite from a famous company, so Madison won't have any troubles there, Samuel continued, laughing heartily. I sighed internally, wanting to leave, but managed to smile at Samuel. Yes, I'm lucky my son is so kind. He takes good care of Madison and even helps me out. I'm truly grateful. I tried to lighten the mood by praising my son, but upon hearing my words, there was a loud noise as Samuel aggressively pushed back his chair. An allowance? His voice wasn't mocking anymore, it sounded angry and low. I could tell that Samuel had stood up and I had said something to upset him. In a panic, I turned toward where I thought James was and searched for his hand, which he gripped back in response. Yes, is there a problem with that? How much are you giving her? $1,000 a month, James replied calmly, though the grip on my hand tightened, betraying his agitation. This old lady living on a pension is just a burden to your girlfriend. Stop wasting money on her. No more allowances. Living on a pension? I'm not old enough to even receive one yet. As I thought this, my anxiety grew. I feared that James' marriage could be ruined because of me. That I was causing him distress right now. Really? $1,000? You've never even bought me a bag. Madison chimed in, sounding dissatisfied. The allowance isn't stopping. It's my way of giving back a little to Mom for raising me. What? This old lady will just drag you down. You should be spending on your future child and Madison, not her. Who's more important to you, James? This old lady or your daughter? The atmosphere had become too hostile for me to diffuse. While I was tense and anxious, Avery stood up and tried to calm Samuel down. Then there was a loud thud, a heavy sound. It was clear that Avery had fallen, likely pushed by Samuel. I stood up and groped my way towards Avery. Are you okay? I managed to reach Avery, who replied softly, I'm fine, and grasped my hand to stand up. Spending even $1 on her is a waste, Samuel continued, not caring that Avery had fallen. Avery kept apologizing to me. I started to think that maybe for James's sake, it would be better to cut ties and never interact with Madison's parents again. If you keep insulting Mom, it will affect you, James warned amidst Samuel's ongoing tirade. The tension in the air was palpable. Ha! What can this old lady do? Is that a threat? Don't want to marry Madison? Samuel scoffed, then grabbed my arm and shook it. Maybe Samuel is in good physique. He must have been physically imposing, as his large hand shook me significantly. What are you doing? Just as James rushed to intervene, the private room's door opened. Sorry I'm late. I'm James's brother, Jack. What's happening here? Jack's voice came through the door, and he quickly realized something was wrong. Naturally. Avery on the floor, Samuel gripping my arm, me reaching upwards, and James trying to stop him. Clearly the situation was abnormal. Hey, what are you doing grabbing someone's mom like that? Jack immediately came over and urged Samuel to let go. Samuel released his grip. My arm hurt from being shaken, and Jack noticed me rubbing it. Asking if I was okay, I replied I was fine, then heard Samuel muttering something. I turned towards him, straining to hear. Why are you here? The CEO. Samuel's voice trembled with evident shock. "Oh, you work at my company? Sorry, there are so many employees, I can't keep track," Jack said to Samuel. It turned out that Samuel was an employee at Jack's company. James, what's the meaning of this?" Samuel demanded an explanation from James. James explained right away. "My dad was the former CEO of the company you're working for. Now Mom is the acting CEO, but since she's blind, my brother is handling it on her behalf. Mom often goes to the company to meet with shareholders and the CEO for work. So essentially, Mom is your boss." James guided me to sit down and sighed deeply. Then he murmured softly, just loud enough for me to hear, "I was going to explain if things stayed calm." "Wait, what? Your brother's the CEO? You didn't tell me." "He's handsome." In the irretrievable atmosphere, Madison, with her youthful naivete, raised her sweet voice and clicked her heels toward Jack. "I might switch to your brother." It was clear from her voice that Madison was making advances on Jack. Jack, slightly flustered, called out to James. James sighed heavily again, and then there was the sound of something heavy being dropped. "I can't marry Madison. I decided that today. I was going to stay silent. But the child in your belly, it isn't mine, is it?" "Wow, what's this? Pictures of her with various men?" While James spoke in a low, firm tone, Jack's tone was humorous and light. Apparently what was laid before them was evidence of Madison's infidelity. The situation was clear, even without an explanation. "What are you talking about? It's your child?" Madison's voice pitched up, showing her distress. Now I understood why James had been upset. "Then let's do a DNA test. If it's really mine, you'll agree, right?" We don't need to do that." The Meet the Families had completely derailed. As I stayed silent, observing, Avery quickly intervened before Madison could make a scene. "Enough. James, Mom, I'm deeply sorry for my husband and daughter's behavior. We will handle everything through lawyers from now on, including compensation. For today, let's just—" "Mom, wait!" I guess I should say, Mom. True to form, Avery firmly scolded Madison and bowed her head. This silenced James, and we all decided to leave. Samuel, who hadn't spoken since Jack's arrival, was pale with shock as Jack gleefully informed us. In the car, James seemed relieved, laughing that he was glad to be breaking up with Madison. The tumultuous time had ended, but I was left confused for a while, trying to make sense of it all. Eventually, James ended things with Madison. No compensation was paid as they weren't married, and James declined it. Regarding Samuel, Jack conducted an investigation at the company and found his work attitude and lack of trust from colleagues problematic, and decided to transfer him to a different department with a stricter boss. Jack thought Samuel would likely resign soon. I also received a call from Avery personally. "I'm truly sorry for what we did to you, Natalie. Money can't make up for it," she said, sounding on the verge of tears. I reassured her not to worry and speculated she might have a harder time ahead with Samuel and Madison's pregnancy issues. "No, it doesn't matter anymore. I've divorced him." Apparently Avery had had enough of being pushed around by Samuel and Madison. Madison angrily left home, and Samuel readily signed the divorce papers, claiming, "You can't do anything without me." They'd likely fall without Avery. "I'm still concerned about the child in Madison's belly, so I'll keep minimal contact with her," Avery said, laughing bitterly, before ending the call. Though James's marriage and child were unfortunate, I hoped for his happiness and looked forward to hearing from him again.